Have you ever met someone who seemed to exist on a different wavelength? A person who notices patterns nobody else sees, who drifts in and out of conversations, as if their attention is caught by some invisible current. Maybe you've been that person yourself, sensing things before they happen, feeling the hidden tensions in a room, haunted by dreams and inner images you can't explain. If so, you might belong to one of the rarest and most misunderstood psychological types ever described by Carl Jung, the intuitive introvert. Jung called this type one of the most difficult modes to understand, both by others and by oneself. Why? Because the intuitive introvert doesn't play by the usual rules. They aren't driven by external results, concrete facts, or even the visible emotions that most people rely on to make sense of the world. Instead, they live guided by something deeper, stranger, a symbolic stream rising up from the unconscious, filled with images, hunches, and archetypes that often make little sense to anyone else. Picture this. While others are busy checking off to-do lists, chasing deadlines, or debating the latest news, the intuitive introvert is quietly observing something beneath the surface. To them, the outer world, the facts, the data, the hustle, often feels hollow, almost like shadows on a wall. Their real attention is pulled toward meanings that are not yet formed, toward possibilities that haven't surfaced, toward a realm of hidden connections that most people never notice. This isn't arrogance or disengagement. It's simply a different way of experiencing reality. But here's the catch: in a world obsessed with proof, productivity, and instant results, what happens to the person who perceives what can't yet be seen or measured? What becomes of someone whose compass, as Jung put it, is entirely internal, who navigates life by subtle hints, dreams, and feelings that can't be easily explained, let alone justified? The intuitive introvert quickly learns that their perceptions are often ignored, doubted, or even mocked. They're the ones who sense the storm before the clouds gather, who feel a rupture in the air before a crisis unfolds, who intuitively know something about a person they've just met, yet when they speak up, they're met with silence or polite dismissal. Over time, the world's skepticism forces many intuitive introverts into silence. Their extraordinary perceptions become private treasures, hidden away in a secret inner world that nobody else is allowed to visit. And yet Jung warned, this silence can be dangerous. When the visions and symbols of the inner life are never shared, never translated into art, language, or action, they risk turning from gifts into burdens. The inner world, which should be a source of insight, can become a prison. Why does this happen? What makes the journey of the intuitive introvert both so powerful and so perilous? And how can those who walk this path avoid being overwhelmed by their own visions, transforming their unique perceptions into creativity and meaning, rather than isolation and confusion? That's what we'll explore in this deep dive. Let's begin by stepping into the world of the intuitive introvert, a place where reality is richer, stranger, and far more mysterious than most people ever imagine. To truly understand the intuitive introvert, you have to forget everything you've been taught about how people should experience reality. For most of us, life is anchored by the concrete, the daily facts, physical sensations, and emotions that form the bedrock of ordinary experience. But for the intuitive introvert, this external world often feels secondary, almost irrelevant. It's as if their true self stands slightly apart from the noise and demands of everyday life, tuned instead to an inner broadcast that few others can hear. Imagine waking up each morning to a subtle whisper beneath your thoughts, a sense of meaning or possibility hovering at the edge of awareness. It might be a vague feeling that something important is about to happen, or a sudden flash of insight that arrives before you even know what question you're supposed to be asking. The intuitive introvert doesn't operate from linear logic or step-by-step analysis. Their guidance comes in flashes, in symbols, in hunches that seem to materialize from nowhere. Jung described this type as living in constant contact with the unconscious, guided by inner images, premonitions, and archetypes that shape their view of reality. While others see only the surface, the intuitive introvert sees the patterns beneath, the hidden currents that predict how events will unfold, the repeating stories that play out in human relationships, the collective dreams that influence whole cultures before anyone is aware of them. Their compass is internal, and their orientation is not toward what is, but toward what might be. Uses stroll, ew. Of course, this inner world is not always peaceful. In fact, it can be profoundly unsettling. For the intuitive introvert, everyday conversations about practical things can feel empty or painfully superficial. The small talk and routines that glue society together often seem bland compared to the rich tapestry of images and meanings flowing inside. It's not that the intuitive introvert is uninterested in the world. It's just that their attention is drawn elsewhere to a symbolic dimension where every moment holds the potential for revelation. But living this way comes at a cost. The intuitive introvert often struggles to translate their visions into words, to bridge the gap between what they sense internally and what the world expects. Their insights may seem cryptic or irrelevant to others, and this disconnect can lead to frustration, self-doubt, and a haunting sense of isolation. Society tends to value what can be proven and measured, and the intuitive introvert's greatest strengths, anticipating change, understanding the invisible, sensing the shape of things to come, are the very qualities most likely to be overlooked. And yet, this psychic complexity is precisely what makes the intuitive introverts so unique. They are the early warning system, the canary in the coal mine, the quiet observer who notices when the winds of culture or fate are about to shift. In a world obsessed with the obvious, the intuitive introvert reminds us that reality is deeper, stranger, and far more interconnected than we dare to admit. For the intuitive introvert, perception is both a superpower and a heavy weight to carry. Imagine moving through life acutely aware of signals most people will never notice. The subtle shift in a friend's voice before they admit something's wrong. The uneasy feeling that precedes a major change at work. The sudden flash of an image or idea that later turns out to be uncannily accurate. To the outside world, these perceptions might seem random or baseless, but for the intuitive introvert, they are as real and urgent as a fire alarm. Yet here lies the paradox. The world demands evidence. Society is built on proof, on visible results and logical explanations. But the intuitive introvert's gift is precisely the ability to sense what has not yet taken form, to grasp possibilities and patterns before they become facts. This makes them exquisitely sensitive to the vibe of people and places, able to pick up on undercurrents and emotional weather before anyone else even realizes a storm is coming. They feel the silent ruptures in relationships, detect the unspoken tension in a room, and sometimes even foresee outcomes long before the details are clear. But this sensitivity often comes at a personal cost. When an intuitive introvert shares what they perceive, a hunch, a warning, an inexplicable feeling, they're frequently met with blank stares, skepticism, or even ridicule. Friends may shrug off their insights as paranoia. Colleagues may dismiss their intuition as just a feeling. Even well-meaning family members might urge them to stop overthinking and focus on what's in front of them. Over time, the message becomes clear: if you can't prove it, keep it to yourself. This relentless pressure to conform to the world of facts and logic can lead intuitive introverts to doubt their own experience. They begin to wonder if their perceptions are real or just a product of an overactive imagination. Some retreat into silence, keeping their deepest insights locked away where no one can judge or reject them. Others try to force themselves to fit in, suppressing their intuition in favor of more socially acceptable ways of knowing. But neither path brings peace. The more they silence their intuition, the more restless and disconnected they feel, as if they're betraying their own nature. Worse still, this isolation breeds loneliness. Intuitive introverts can feel like strangers in their own lives, speaking a language no one else understands. The world's refusal to acknowledge their reality leaves them perpetually on the outside, looking in. And yet, the cost of denying their gift is even greater. As Jung warned, the intuitive introvert who fails to honor and express their perceptions risks being overwhelmed by them. Their inner world, once a source of meaning and guidance, can become a confusing labyrinth, a place where anxiety and uncertainty rule. But what happens when these visions remain unexpressed, when the burden of perception becomes too heavy to carry alone? In the next section, we'll explore the hidden dangers of silence and the high price of locking away the very gift that sets the intuitive introvert apart. As the intuitive introvert navigates a world that struggles to accept what it cannot see, a dangerous habit often takes root: silence. With each dismissed hunch or misunderstood vision, the desire to share dwindles. The intuitive introvert retreats, wrapping their inner world in layers of secrecy, protecting their insights from skepticism, but also, unintentionally, cutting themselves off from the very act of creation that could bring those visions to life. At first, this silence may feel like a relief, a safe haven from judgment and rejection. Why bother explaining the inexplicable? Why risk ridicule for feelings and images that no one else seems to value? It's easier, perhaps, to keep everything hidden, to live two separate lives, one outwardly ordinary, the other filled with rich internal drama that never sees the light of day. But this division, as Carl Jung warned, is not sustainable. Left unshared and unexpressed, the intuitive's internal world can begin to turn on itself. Imagine the psyche as a vast house, each vision or insight a visitor knocking at the door, hoping to be acknowledged, invited in, or even let out into the wider world. When those visitors are ignored, when the intuitive introvert denies the urge to give form to what they see, they don't simply disappear. Instead, they linger, building up behind closed doors, growing restless, urgent, and at times, overwhelming. The inner world, once a source of inspiration and guidance, risks becoming a prison. Jung cautioned that when intuition isn't translated into language, art, or action, it can become autonomous, an independent force inside the psyche that refuses to be ignored. The intuitive introvert who never expresses their insights may start to feel haunted by them, beset by intrusive images, dreams, or compulsive thoughts that seem to demand attention. The symbolic material that was meant to inspire can, instead, dominate and even destabilize. In this private labyrinth, the intuitive introvert ceases to be the wise observer and becomes, instead, the one who is possessed by their own images. The line between insight and obsession begins to blur. Unspoken truths fester. Creative energies stagnate. What could have been expressed as a painting, a story, a conversation, or a simple act of kindness remains bottled up, transforming from revelation into anxiety, confusion, or even despair. There's a deeper danger, too. The risk that silence will breed not just isolation, but self-doubt. The more the intuitive introvert hides, the more disconnected they become from their own guidance. Their visions may start to feel like burdens instead of gifts, strange compulsions instead of inner wisdom. The world within, unexpressed and misunderstood, becomes a tangled web, one from which it can be difficult to escape. So what's the way out? How can the intuitive introvert transform the silent pressure of their inner world into something meaningful, creative, and healing? In the next section, we'll explore how unexpressed intuition can cross the delicate line between revelation and delusion, and why finding a path to expression is not just important, but absolutely vital. It's a strange paradox. The very sensitivity that empowers the intuitive introvert to grasp what others overlook also exposes them to a kind of psychic tightrope walk. When intuition flows freely, expressed through art, language, or meaningful action, it serves as a beacon, a guiding light illuminating possibilities others have yet to imagine. But when these symbols and visions are left unspoken, the boundary between revelation and delusion grows perilously thin. Jung observed that intuition, especially when introverted, operates not in the realm of logic, but in the domain of images and symbolic forms. These are not mere flights of fancy. They are the psyche's deepest language, offering insight into what's stirring beneath the surface, inside us and around us. However, symbols are by nature ambiguous. Without the discipline of expression and reflection, what begins as a flash of insight can easily spiral into confusion or even obsession. Consider Jung's famous account of a patient who described a vision of a black snake in her abdomen, a disturbing image that, to most, would seem like nothing but delirium. Yet, as analysis progressed, this symbol evolved, eventually transforming into a golden-headed serpent, a powerful sign of healing and renewal. The process illustrates a crucial truth. Symbols demand integration. Left unexamined or unexpressed, they may appear meaningless or even threatening, but when translated into language, art, or conscious awareness, their purpose is revealed. What begins as darkness can become the seed of transformation. The risk for the intuitive introvert lies in confusing insight with fantasy, wisdom with mere daydream. When the outer world offers little recognition or validation, it becomes all too easy to take refuge in one's visions, to begin living solely in the internal narrative. The mind, once an instrument for perceiving subtle truths, can become a self-reinforcing echo chamber where every symbol seems significant, every dream a prophecy. The individual loses the ability to discern what is a genuine revelation and what is a seductive illusion. This is the psychic danger of archetypal inflation, where the ego is overtaken by the powerful images of the unconscious and starts to identify with them completely. In this state, the intuitive introvert may feel chosen, even burdened by a sense of special destiny. They become not just a messenger, but the message itself, losing touch with the grounding reality that all symbols, however powerful, are meant to be interpreted, not worshipped. Yet the way forward remains the same. The need to bring inner visions into the outer world. Whether through creative work, conversation, ritual, or simple reflection, the act of expression serves as a vital bridge. It grounds intuition, transforms symbols into meaning, and keeps the introvert anchored in reality. When this bridge is absent, the line between revelation and delusion dissolves, and what was once a gift can become a snare. Next, we'll explore what happens when this internal world becomes too seductive, when the sense of uniqueness spirals into psychic inflation, and the individual becomes lost in their own myth. How can the intuitive introvert recognize and escape this trap? Let's dig deeper into the shadow side of intuition. For the intuitive introvert, the inner world is a landscape of endless fascination and potential, a place where insight and meaning seem to multiply with every new vision. But what happens when this symbolic reality becomes so compelling, so all-encompassing, that it blurs the boundaries between self and symbol? Jung called this phenomenon inflatio, the subtle inflation of the ego by unconscious contents. It's a psychological trap that begins quietly, almost innocently, but can lead to profound alienation from both self and society. At the heart of psychic inflation is a creeping sense of uniqueness. The intuitive introvert, so attuned to hidden patterns and deep archetypal energies, may begin to feel chosen, marked by a special destiny invisible to others. What starts as a healthy recognition of their gifts can morph into a messianic illusion, a conviction that they alone carry truths too powerful or subtle for the rest of the world. As the internal narrative swells, criticism from others is dismissed as ignorance, and doubt becomes a sign of others' inferiority, not a call to honest self-reflection. Isolation, once an uncomfortable reality imposed by misunderstanding, now becomes a badge of honor. No one gets me because I'm more evolved, the inner voice whispers, reinforcing the distance between the intuitive introvert and those around them. Relationships become transactional, measured by how well others mirror the introvert's symbolic vision. Any contradiction or challenge to their narrative is experienced as a personal attack, not an opportunity for growth or grounding. This is the danger of living in a psychic echo chamber. The intuitive function, once a source of guidance and creative possibility, mutates into a vehicle of escape, a way to retreat from the frustrations and messiness of real life. Practical tasks go unfinished, friendships and responsibilities are neglected, and the rich symbolic world becomes a substitute for actual living. The individual may become so identified with archetypal roles, the wise sage, the misunderstood prophet, the eternal martyr, that they lose sight of their own ordinary humanity. Jung saw this pattern often in those who emotionally isolated themselves, refusing any real adaptation to the world around them. The greater risk wasn't loneliness, but what followed, the complete colonization of consciousness by the unconscious. When this happens, the ego no longer mediates between inner and outer realities, but becomes a passive vessel, swept along by the powerful images that were once meant only to guide, not govern. Judgment is clouded, perception is distorted, and life begins to take on the qualities of a mythic drama, full of meaning, but untethered from reality. The intuitive introvert may feel as if they finally belong somewhere, but it's a world that exists only in their own mind, with rules and truths that no one else can verify or share. Yet, not all is lost. There is a way out of this labyrinth, a way to honor intuition without being consumed by it. The key lies in the power of expression to translate inner visions into form, to give symbolic material a voice in the outer world. In the next section, we'll see how creativity and authentic self-expression can transform the psychic burden of intuition into a wellspring of insight, healing, and connection. If there is a single lesson that emerges from the struggles of the intuitive introvert, it's this: the inner world cannot remain a closed system. The very visions and symbols that threaten to overwhelm are also the seeds of extraordinary creativity, if only they find a path to expression. For the intuitive introvert, creativity isn't a luxury or a hobby, it is a lifeline, a necessity as vital as breath itself. It is the bridge that links the solitary world within to the living, breathing world outside. History offers powerful proof of this principle. Think of Franz Kafka, whose labyrinthine stories gave voice to feelings of alienation and absurdity that haunted modern existence. Or Vincent van Gogh, whose turbulent inner life erupted in explosive colors and swirling brushstrokes, translating psychic pain into art that moves us even today. Jung himself, recognizing the danger of psychic inflation, spent years transforming his own visions into writing, art, and theory, gifts that have illuminated the human mind for generations. These examples are not just tales of genius, they are roadmaps for survival. When the intuitive introvert channels their inner symbols into words, images, music, or even daily rituals, something remarkable happens. The vision once locked inside takes shape in the world. The internal labyrinth becomes a map that others can follow. Private struggle transforms into shared meaning. The act of creation relieves psychic pressure, restoring a sense of order and perspective. Suddenly, the intuitive function is no longer a solitary burden. It becomes a way to connect, to communicate, to inspire. But this is not only about grand works of art or philosophical breakthroughs. The power of expression can be found in simple, everyday acts: journaling one's dreams, painting without judgment, composing music for no audience but oneself, or even speaking openly about one's experiences to a trusted friend. Rituals too: lighting a candle, walking in nature, keeping a sketchbook, help ground the symbolic world, giving it shape and meaning. Expression is more than mere release. It is integration. It allows the intuitive introvert to translate what was once inchoate and formless into something real, something that can be reflected upon and understood. Through this process, the symbolic images cease to dominate. They become guides rather than tyrants. The creative act is not an escape from reality, but a vital confrontation with it, a way of reconciling the mysterious depths of the unconscious with the demands and beauties of daily life. There's a dual benefit here. Not only does the intuitive introvert relieve their own psychic tension, but their creations also enrich the collective unconscious. When one person dares to share their vision, they offer others a glimpse into realms they may never have known existed. What was once isolation becomes influence. What was strangeness becomes language. Yet even the richest expression isn't enough if it isn't balanced by something crucial: grounding in the real, in the physical world. In the next section, we'll explore why returning to the senses, anchoring intuition in bodily experience, is just as vital as creative expression. How can the intuitive introvert avoid floating away entirely and learn to live fully in both worlds? For all the beauty and revelation found in the intuitive introvert's inner world, there's a critical truth: intuition alone, untethered, can leave a person feeling rootless, adrift in visions, untouchable by ordinary joys. Jung was adamant about this point. Without a solid anchor in the here and now, the intuitive function risks turning from a gift into a whirlpool, pulling its owner further from the simple reality of being alive. What does grounding look like for the intuitive introvert? It's about restoring connection to the body, the senses, the concrete rhythms of daily life. It might sound paradoxical. How can something as mundane as folding laundry or tending to a garden compete with the richness of archetypes and symbols? Yet, these small acts are nothing less than medicine. They remind the intuitive introvert that life is not only an inward journey, but also a physical one, played out moment by moment, breath by breath. Sensation, Jung taught, is the psychic function responsible for perceiving what is tangible. It is the warmth of the sun, the scent of cut grass, the taste of morning coffee, the feeling of bare feet on the floor. For the intuitive introvert, these details can sometimes seem irrelevant or even distracting, just background noise to the real work of deciphering inner symbols. But it's precisely this immersion in sensation that provides balance. The body acts as a counterweight to the mind's abstractions, a gentle anchor pulling the intuitive back into the now. Grounding practices don't have to be elaborate. A daily walk in nature, preparing food with care, engaging in a craft or manual project, these are all invitations for the intuitive introvert to return home to themselves. Even simple rituals, like lighting a candle, organizing a workspace, or practicing mindful breathing, can serve as anchors in the storm. Through these acts, the intuitive introvert tells their unconscious, there is order, there is body, there is reality. This anchoring does not diminish the symbolic depth of intuition. Rather, it sustains and enriches it. The goal is not to shut out the inner world, but to create a rhythm between diving deep and resurfacing, between vision and embodiment. When intuition and sensation work together, the introvert is no longer just an observer of hidden realities, but also a participant in the tangible world. Their visions become rooted, capable of shaping choices, relationships, and creative projects in ways that are both meaningful and practical. There's a therapeutic power here too. In times of overwhelm, returning to the senses offers relief from psychic overload. It breaks the cycle of rumination and fantasy, gently guiding attention back to what is immediate and knowable. This grounding gives the intuitive introvert a sense of agency, reminding them that no matter how vast the internal landscape, they are always free to return to the simplicity of the present moment. But even with grounding and expression, the intuitive introvert still faces a final challenge: how to live authentically in a world that often devalues the invisible, the mysterious, and the unmeasurable. In our concluding section, we'll explore the daily courage it takes to remain true to this inner vision while thriving in a world built for the concrete. Even when the intuitive introvert learns to honor their visions, express them through creativity, and ground themselves in the physical world, a unique battle remains, one that plays out quietly, often invisibly, each day. The world we live in prizes the measurable, the practical, and the obvious. Productivity is celebrated, data is king, and anything that can't be weighed, explained, or monetized is all too often dismissed. For the intuitive introvert, whose life is shaped by meaning, depth, and the unseen, this reality can feel like an ongoing assault on the soul. The pressure to conform is relentless. In schools, at work, even in relationships, there is a constant push to set aside intuition in favor of logic, to prove value through tangible results. To share a dream, a feeling, or an unexplainable hunch is to risk being seen as irrational, childish, or even unstable. Conversations demand clarity and speed. Emotions must be justified or else kept hidden. In this world, the intuitive introvert often feels compelled to edit themselves, holding back their insights, biting their tongue, or playing the part of someone more normal just to fit in. But beneath this performance, the struggle continues. There's a cost to denying the inner world, a slow erosion of vitality, a dull ache that grows as intuition is sidelined again and again. For some, it leads to resignation, a kind of quiet defeat, but for others, it sparks a quiet, stubborn act of resistance. Jung called this the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming truly oneself, no matter the cost. For the intuitive introvert, this means nurturing a symbolic core, holding on to the truths that cannot be measured even when they're invisible to everyone else. This isn't about withdrawing from the world or building walls against reality. It's about moving through life with an inner axis, a private compass that keeps you true even when no one else understands. It's the courage to sustain a vision, to keep listening to the whispers of the soul even when society's noise grows deafening. It's about speaking up, sometimes quietly, sometimes boldly, when you sense something others can't, or expressing your creativity for its own sake, not just for applause or acceptance. In this way, the intuitive introvert becomes a transformative figure, not by imposing their truth on others, but by embodying it. Their presence alone can be a subtle challenge to the shallow values of materialism, a reminder that life is richer, deeper, and stranger than we often allow ourselves to admit. Even if their insights are never fully recognized, their fidelity to their vision makes a difference. The world is changed not only by inventions and discoveries, but by those who keep alive the mystery at its heart. And so, the final challenge is the bravest of all: to live symbolically in a material world, to choose depth over convenience, and to nurture meaning in a society hungry for the obvious. In doing so, the intuitive introvert not only survives, they inspire others to seek the unseen, question the ordinary, and discover the magic just beneath the surface of things. So where does this leave the intuitive introvert, and those of us who long to honor the mysteries within? Maybe you recognize yourself in these stories, or maybe you see a friend, a partner, a quiet child lost in thought. What's certain is that the world needs every kind of vision, especially the ones that don't fit neatly into spreadsheets, business plans, or social norms. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, the path to becoming who we truly are, depends on listening to the quiet voice inside. For the intuitive introvert, this means defending your symbolic core even when it makes you different. It means finding ways, big or small, to translate your inner life into words, images, gestures, or rituals that bring meaning to your days and inspiration to those around you. It's not about being understood by everyone, but about living authentically and refusing to abandon the gifts that make you unique. As we've seen, this isn't an easy path. It demands courage to stand in your truth when the world prefers the familiar and the quantifiable. It requires patience to bridge the gap between what you know in your bones and what others can accept. And it takes creativity, a willingness to risk awkwardness, misunderstanding, even loneliness for the chance to share what you sense so deeply. But remember, your visions are not mistakes. Your dreams, symbols, and intuitions have a place, even if it's a quiet one, even if only a handful of people ever really understand. History is full of people who, like you, felt out of step with their times. Kafka, Van Gogh, Jung, and countless others whose private struggles eventually became public gifts. Their courage wasn't in being recognized, but in remaining true to their mysterious callings, transforming inner turmoil into art, theory, and ideas that changed how we all see the world. So as you move forward, ask yourself, what small act of expression can you offer today? Is it a journal entry, a painting, a song, or a conversation that finally brings a hidden truth to light? Can you ground yourself in the simple pleasures of daily life? A walk, a shared meal, a moment of mindful silence, and let those experiences steady your inner compass. In doing so, you not only nurture your own soul, but offer the world a rare and needed perspective. If this journey has resonated with you, if you've ever felt like you walk between worlds, living in symbols and intuitions others can't see, share your story in the comments below. How do you balance your rich inner life with the demands of the outer world? What strategies have helped you remain whole? Your voice may be exactly what another silent traveler needs to hear. And if you're looking to deepen your understanding, check out my ebook Beyond the Shadow. The link is in the pinned comment. There you'll find more tools for exploring Jung's ideas and discovering the meaning hidden in your own experience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a deep dive into the mysteries of the psyche. Your presence here proves that even in a noisy, fast-paced world, there's still room for curiosity, for wonder, and for those who dare to see what lies beneath the surface. Until next time, keep listening, keep creating, and never lose sight of the invisible worlds within.